Just to get us started here, I wanted to welcome everyone. My name is Jessica Melema. I lead corporate marketing and communications for Spinutech. If you don't know who we are, Spinutech is a full service web design and digital marketing agency with offices in Cedar Falls and Des Moines, Iowa, Chicago, Denver, and Tampa, and remote team members in more than 25 states. Our team helps our clients to build unique customer experiences that grow traffic, convert leads, and we can track their entire marketing funnel in one spot. One of our core values at Spinutech is we get better every day. And what that means is that we strive to get better for ourselves, our teammates, our clients. And in that spirit of being lifelong learners, we decided to start this series of webinars to share our expertise and our discoveries with you. So whether you're already one of our partners or we haven't ever met, we hope you learned something today from our social team, and we would love to continue the conversation with you beyond this webinar. Today, you're going to hear from three of our subject matter experts on the social media team at Spinutech, and they're going to talk about both technical and creative elements that can help you get the most out of your paid and organic social media efforts. Kip Russell is our Director of Social Media Marketing. He's based out of the Tampa area. Maggie Bozen is our social media team lead who specializes in paid ads on social, and she's in the Denver, Colorado area. And Faye Hahn is a social media team lead specializing in organic social media, and she's out of Las Vegas. We will not have, just as a matter of logistics here, we will not have the live chat open today, but we do encourage you to submit questions using the Q&A feature that you should see along the bottom or the top of your screen, depending on how your Zoom is oriented. We'll be monitoring that Q&A throughout the presentation, and we should have some time to answer questions at the end. I'll just give a quick reminder to our panelists today to mute themselves when they're not speaking, and we will jump right in with Kip.
Yep, thanks, Jess. A lot has changed in the last 2 years in social. I think if you were on the last webinar, I mentioned that social is about 40% more competitive over the last 2 years, meaning big brands, lots of people have been pouring money into the social apps because post-COVID, it was the best place to reach a consumer on their primary device, which is their cell phone, and people are seeing that success and continuing it. So one thing that we've been and has been super successful with our clients and really is key to all your paid social strategies moving forward is understanding that in-app data signals and website data signals are equally important in 2022 and moving on. And that is because if you haven't heard of the iOS update, which is iOS 14, when that happened, iOS changed the way that we look at data. So when people leave Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, if people have opted into iOS 14 data privacy settings, we can no longer see a lot of that data when they leave a TikTok, leave a Facebook, and go to a website. A lot of that data on the site now is modeled. So while it's still important to drive people to your site and drive conversions, you want to focus on creating that upper funnel in-app data signals. And often these are the best audiences to remarket because we have the best, cleanest data inside Facebook, inside TikTok, other than going to your site. So a lot of the strategies that we do include what we call sequential messaging, we'll talk about later, and building those in-app data signals in the upper funnel. So doing a video views campaign to get people to watch your content, to get a lead gen form, to get people to open your lead gen forms, which happens in app, and to give you an email address. And then you can remarket them based on the actions they take in your upper funnel. This is often cheaper CPMs and gets you in front of a wider net to find those needles in a haystack that are going to convert. And in fact, all of our clients are seeing success when they run this type of strategy. And a big shift in the landscape is TikTok. And what we know, what's made TikTok successful is most people just consume video, right? They just passively watch. They're what we call lurkers. They're watching videos, and watch time is ultimately one of the most important KPIs in any of your campaigns. How long did they watch the video? Shows how engaged they are. So that's why we talk about in-app data signals, and Maggie's going to take the next section and talk a lot about website data and pixels and things like that. So we'll get more onto this in the next few slides.
Yeah, so like Kip said, in-app data has become a lot more important, but it is still imperative that we are getting that pixel and event tracking set up accurately on your site before you launch any of your paid social campaigns. So what this means is we need to add a base pixel to all pages of your website. And we usually recommend all pages just because this allows us to track that user journey once we do drive them to the website. And then it's important to identify those key macro and micro conversions that you want to track. And those are really going to be based on the goals of your campaign. So what do you want those users to do when they get to your website? Are you looking to capture an email through gated content? Are you looking for them to fill out a contact us form? Or are you more on the e-com side where you're looking for people to purchase? Those things are what you'll want to set up for your conversions. And it's really based on what your goals are for your business. Again, one of the changes that has happened with all the iOS updates over the last year and a half are that Facebook really only allows us to configure up to 8 conversions. And those are prioritized within the aggregated event measurement tool. So what you need to do is prioritize your conversions based on the ones that are most important to you. So again, with e-com, that'll likely be that purchase event, followed by add to cart, initiate checkout, and then say you want to maybe capture someone's email when they sign up for a coupon. That would maybe be down a little bit further in the lower priority. But all this needs to be set up before you launch your campaigns. So once you kind of have all this in place, you're ready to move into Ads Manager and start to build out your campaigns. But what you want to do is you want to make sure you're setting up the right objective based on those goals that you just implemented on the back end. So say you want to run a conversion objective for e-com, you'll want to make sure that you have your base pixel selected at the ad set level, and then that you're also selecting that purchase event to optimize for. And what that means is that we're basically telling Facebook that we want Facebook to find those users who are most likely to purchase on your website. So it's really important that we're hitting those right people and making sure that they're taking the action that we want them to take on the website. And then kind of on the flip side of the pixels, we do know that, we're preparing for a world without that third-party cookie data, and that's where Conversions API comes in. So this was another rollout that happened kind of with all the iOS updates in the last year and a half. But really what Conversions API is that it allows advertisers to send conversion data back to Facebook safely and securely. So the difference between that and the Pixel are that the Pixel really tracks web browser data. And then what CAPI does is that's actually set up on the server side. So it kind of surpasses that web browser and goes straight to the server. And then we're able to also tell the server what data we want back to Facebook to continue to optimize our campaigns for the best users that we want to reach. So there are a lot of advantages into adopting CAPI today. One being discrete data control. And what this means is we can better control the data we share and when we share it. More reliable data sharing, which strengthens how we share that data back to Facebook. And then full funnel visibility, which really just gives us more insight into those people who matter most to our business so we can continue to optimize for those users. So as I mentioned, ideally Conversions API is installed on the server side. However, this does require working with a developer who has access to that server and then who also has that coding capability to add CAPI to the server side. We know this isn't feasible for everyone, but there are partner integrations with products like Google Tag Manager that can also be used as well. So I know everything I ran through is pretty technical. It's all kind of on the back end of Business Manager. So it can be new to a lot of you, but feel free to drop a question into the Q&A and we hope to get to it at the end. Otherwise, if you're a small business and you just kind of want to be pointed in the right direction of where to get started, please send our webinar team an email and we'd be happy to point you in the right direction. But with that, I'm going to pass it back to Kip to talk about creative.
Thanks, Maggie. We've talked a lot about data in the last few slides, but I think really ultimately what can be the best optimization for any of your campaigns in 2022 is creative. As the targeting gets a little bit less sophisticated in these social apps due to all the privacy changes, your creative needs to be equally looked at to make sure it's resonating with your audience and performing well. And we see all the time with our clients. We'll do a big creative refresh and we'll see immediate impact and boost in performance when we get the creative right. So like we said before, Facebook, Instagram, they're 40% more competitive. So it's really important that you're thinking about ways to create that thumb-stopping creative, right? So ways to break through to beat your competition. So a couple ideas that we have seen success with is one, you could do partnering with influencers or whitelisting where you're getting influencer content, whether they're creating it on TikTok or Instagram or statics, and putting that type of creative in your paid advertisement is a way to break through. You have that brand recognition, right, at scale. And then if you can't afford a big superstar or celebrity, there's a site called Business Cameo where you can get lots of these A-lister or previously A-lister fun celebrities, sports athletes that can really for affordably for $500 to $1,500 a month. You can put them into your creative too, and it's just another way to get that endorsement, another way to try to test to see if you can break through and get something that resonates. We know that celebrities and influencers are often the best performing creative we use for our clients. And then a lot of the channels are doubling down on creators. As TikTok comes into the space, they need to incentivize to keep creators on their platform. So they've created new tools like Creator Hub, and TikTok and Instagram is doing it as well, where you can go directly through TikTok to tap these creators for your paid campaigns. Some of them have support where they'll help you craft like creative briefs so you can do it really well. But ultimately what we're talking about here is making sure you're looking at your creative as much as you're thinking about your data, as much as you're thinking about performance, that your creative ultimately can make or break a campaign, and it needs to really resonate to the audience that you're targeting. And the last note here is sequential messaging, is making sure that you're showing the right creative throughout the funnel, that you're not just running one ad across it and confusing the consumer. They're just seeing the same ad over and over again. They don't know any difference. They start to tune it out, that you're sharing in the upper funnel, in the mid funnel, and the lower funnel, different creative, and you're figuring out which ones pull the lever the best in each stage of the funnel. And any questions, let us know at the end. But other than that, we're going to pass it on to talk a little bit more organic with Faye.
Yeah, thanks, Kip. So when you think about the organic social channel landscape that you're on, it's really important to kind of take a step back and ask yourself, what channel should we even be on? A lot of brands, might approach that thinking, well, we should just be on every channel and try to do everything on every channel. But we know that managing social channels, creating content, doing community management, that all takes a lot of time. It's a big investment. And so the best thing is to think, what are our specific goals for social? And where do we think we're going to get the best ROI on our time and effort when it comes to the social channels that we're on? Because it's really important to understand, what is the consumer mindset when they're in each channel? What is their behavior within each channel? And how do we behave natively in that channel so that they have a seamless experience with us in that channel? And we can then drive them to follow us, purchase our product, be a brand advocate. So when you're looking at all the different channel options that we have nowadays, for example, you could look at Facebook and LinkedIn and think, okay, we're going to prioritize our blog and website traffic content on these channels, because maybe these channels are the ones that are the best traffic drivers for us. You may then look at Instagram and Pinterest as maybe a channel where you say, okay, this is where we're going to prioritize our photography, and we're going to prioritize our online shopping on these two channels. Whereas maybe TikTok, you're partnering with influencers, you're partnering with creators, and you're letting them use their creative expertise on a channel where the video creative does have to be so nuanced and you may not be the expert at that. So letting an influencer speak for you could be the best tactic on a platform like TikTok. Whereas Twitter, for example, could be a place where you guys just keep really in tune with industry news. You're interacting with key influencers and industry leaders in that space, sharing out PR updates, sharing out new product announcements. So that's kind of a way that you can look at each channel individually and think, is this the right channel for our brand? A lot of research that goes into that too is just knowing the community and doing a lot of testing, just jumping into those communities and getting in touch with those conversations. That's another great way to just get more visibility for your brand, but it's also a great way to get insight as to what consumers on that channel in that space are talking about. Are they talking about your brand? Are they talking about different things? So that can kind of give you some insight as to whether or not that channel is going to make sense for you. And then lastly, social does not live in a silo in your overarching digital marketing strategy. So organic social is oftentimes kind of seen as this separate initiative to paid and to other digital initiatives you may be doing, like programmatic or paid search. But for the user is jumping through these different channels throughout the day, sometimes within the same hour. So it's really important that your social channels are working with these different touch points to make sure everything makes sense and that you're speaking to the person who's interested in your brand, depending on where they're at. So it's really important for all these different teams to be in sync with each other. And to go a little bit more into community management, like I was saying, community management is really the best way to get more eyeballs on your organic social pages and to just create more awareness about your brand within a space where your industry is already being discussed. So a lot of times, you're posting on your channels and you're posting organically and your follower growth isn't really growing, and you kind of just are in a little bit of an echo chamber in your channels. More proactive community management, where you're jumping out of your channels and identifying who are the key influencers and leaders in the space, and how do we leave comments on their channels, leave comments on people who are tagging us, leave comments on other conversations that are happening, around our industry, so that users can see that we're involved and we're engaged, and we're then seen as a resource and a leader within that industry. Another thing with community management is aligning your engagement with maybe current events, cultural moments, things that are trending, things that are going viral, holidays. Those kinds of things are happening pretty much 24/7. So it's really important to identify what cultural moments and things like that are going to be most lucrative for us, because it should really be quality over quantity. Jumping into every single holiday that's on the calendar may not be the best use of your time and content creation efforts. So it may be better to just be a little bit more selective and identify what types of trending moments like this can we latch on to, that we can tie back to the brand, or we have a really strong story to tell. Otherwise, it's better to just focus on, what can you do well, instead of trying to do everything at once. But again, community management is a great way to gather industry insights just about your community, and to always keep the brand top of mind when it comes to things that are trending and conversations that are happening on social. And then lastly, when it comes to your organic social channels, having a very diverse creative mix is really important. So as the channels and platforms are evolving, they're making updates pretty much constantly. And the trends that we're seeing is more and more platforms are prioritizing video, and especially vertical video. And so the more you can leverage these types of platform content types that they're prioritizing in their algorithm, the better chance of your brand getting high visibility in your followers' feeds. And then that way you'll get more engagement and more reach. And so when you're thinking about content, thinking about creative, it can be kind of overwhelming thinking how much you're going to have to create to keep a social calendar populated. So an easy way to kind of fill out a calendar and making sure that your content is as efficient as possible is taking a step back and looking at what content have you maybe already created for other digital channels that can maybe just be slightly tweaked, and then they can be used for social. So like a blog, for example, it lives on your website as a long form piece of article content, but there could be statistics, quotes, testimonials, infographics, things like that that already live in the blog that you could pull out, repurpose into like a graphic, or maybe a short video with some animation, maybe a little bit of footage that you have. And now that blog has become a video post, an infographic post, a carousel post, a static image post. It could be a story, it could be a reel, the list kind of goes on. So that's a great way to kind of take a step back and audit what have we already created and what has opportunity to just have more legs, where we can fill out a social calendar over the course of a few months with content that we can just repurpose.
Thanks, Faye. I've got a few questions coming in, and I'll start just addressing the ones that I can see so far, but we do have another 10 minutes, so I definitely encourage everybody to still use that Q&A box to submit additional questions. One thing I made a note of while Kip was presenting about the thumb stopping creative, he touched very briefly on the topic of sequential messaging and really hitting all stages of your funnel. I just wanted to call out that Kip did cover that topic in a little more depth in our last webinar in April on digital marketing trends. And that webinar recording lives on spinutech.com, as well as a full blog that was recently published about sequential messaging. So if that's something you're interested in learning more about, we can certainly discuss it here today if you've got specific questions, but otherwise I would encourage you to check out those other resources on our website, because there's some really, really good information there. So the first question here, I think we'll direct towards Maggie. Question is, can you run paid social ads without having tracking pixels or event measurement or CAPI set up? What are the risks of running paid social ads without those things in place?
Sure. So what I'll say is that, platforms like Facebook or, TikTok, LinkedIn, they won't stop you from running. So you can set up and launch and start to see impressions and maybe even some clicks come through. But what you're missing out on is understanding what those users are doing on your site and how many landing pages you're driving, and even using kind of backend data to see what type of conversions you're driving, what those users are doing on your site once they get there. So are they going to your landing page and leaving, or are they going and visiting multiple pages? And with that information that we're able to gather with the tracking and the conversion setup, we're able to start to better optimize our campaigns based on that information. So say we're driving in Facebook, we can see maybe we're driving a high click-through rate, a lot of clicks, but then we check within like Google Analytics and we see that bounce rate is 85, 90%. Well, that's telling me that maybe our ads are working, but we're not driving them to a page that they're engaging with, or we're not giving them what they want. So we either need to change our messaging, we need to change our landing page. But basically what I'm saying is that with all that pixel tracking and conversion tracking data, it allows us to get a little bit more granular and better optimize our campaigns. And without that, you're kind of losing out on all that information to make your campaigns the best that they can be.
There is a lot of technical elements there, but obviously also a lot of value to having that deeper data and using that to help make decisions and guide your strategy.
Yeah, and I'll add that Facebook on the back end, they give you directions on how to set up the pixel and different options of how to go about that as well. And if you have a site like Squarespace, that you think is smaller and aren't as familiar with it, setting all that up, there's a ton of helpful guides of how to kind of connect everything together too. So there really shouldn't be any hurdles in preventing you from getting that pixel on your site.
Thanks, Maggie. Next question in is one I'll direct to Faye. It's around community management. This person asked, is it important to respond to every comment a user adds, either to your paid posts or your organic posts? Do you have to react and respond to every single one?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say not necessarily. So there are a lot of times, on social media, sometimes a comment being left on a page may be, not necessarily something that needs a response, because a lot of times people leave comments and they may be a little confused about what they're, putting. A lot of times comments don't necessarily make sense. And so you don't need to leave a response to that. But on the other hand, if there are comments that are being very supportive of your content, being very supportive of your brand in general, it is important to reward those fans with responses as soon as possible. So liking their comment and leaving a reply, showing appreciation for their support, and even taking that opportunity to maybe direct them to another piece of content, maybe another product that they might be interested in. So yeah, to answer the question, not every comment is engageable, and that's okay, but definitely prioritize your time with those who are very supportive of the brand. And then also, if people have questions or concerns or have an issue, to direct those into the private messages and resolve those issues right away.
Thanks, Faye. This next one is around creative and video. I think Kip probably has a good answer here. The question is around how to make scalable video, how to produce it. Are there like DIY tools that SpinUtech recommends? What do we as an agency use to make video on behalf of our clients? How do you get at that that trend and produce it sort of efficiently and scalably? That's not a word, scalably.
Scalable something. I think it really depends on this type of business you are. If you're a small business, there's probably different tools. And if you're a larger business, there's probably a different strategy. But I think ultimately it's understanding what the role of video will be. But yeah, there's many ways to scale. One would be using the right tools. And there's things like Canva Pro, Banner Snacks, where you can make sort of templated videos. Documenting, if you're a small business, like documenting your day, having, whether it's a cell phone or a DSLR camera, having someone tell your story authentically, so documenting and then cutting your video into lots of different formats. And then there's all sorts of agencies or partners like ourselves that can do this at scale and have the equipment and really can just partner with you to capture the video you need. And I think knowing that in these channels, authentic video versus highly produced video is better. You can shoot things on your cell phone and they can convert at scale versus having to spend 50 grand or 100 grand on or $1 million on a TV commercial. That I think that production budget, if you have it, can go a long way when you're thinking about the channels that you're playing in. So lots of different ways, and really depends on your type of business.
Cool, thank you. Here's another one for Faye. Kind of referring back to the channel mix conversation. Question is, how many channels are too many for a brand to try to be keeping up with, playing with? And are there some that you just have to be on, and how do you decide?
Yeah, definitely. It kind of depends on the brand. There are definitely some brands out there where being on every channel, they are able to scale their efforts and dedicate the amount of resources and research it takes to do every channel well. I think in situations where brands have more limited time, maybe limited resources, it can take some testing. And I think it's also worth saying that you can be on every channel and maybe not have that channel be necessarily an ongoing content posting channel. So what we've done sometimes is, we do want to have a presence on a specific channel, but we may not have, we may not see the return on the amount of effort it would take to keep that channel active effectively. And so we can have a handle and then use it more as a landing page that springboards users off to like the website, or maybe a landing page or another channel where we are more active. And I think learning which channel makes sense for you, again, it can definitely depend on the brand. It can depend on the audience and the product, the audience that you're trying to speak to, and the product that you are selling. So yeah, I think there's a lot of factors that can go into there. We could definitely have a whole webinar just on channel strategy, but I hope that gives a sense of, how you can kind of understand the landscape and understand like different channels can have different purposes, even if they're not necessarily active.
And then sort of a related question that just came in. Should a business page have multiple Facebook accounts for each location they have, or just one main Facebook page for the business? I don't know who wants to take that one.
I could jump in here. So one main Facebook page for the business, or multiple? I think it really actually depends on your business. Again, I hate to go back to that cliche, but if you're one big brand, you don't necessarily need one for every office. But if you're a school or some sort of brand with multiple different educational classes or offices that people can attend, I think it makes sense to set up that parent-child relationship with each thing on Facebook. It might not make sense on other channels like Instagram and TikTok, where you might just want the overarching brand there versus 25 different Instagram accounts. But I think understanding who the brand is and what their business challenges is where we could give a really direct answer on that.
And then one more quick question. I know we're right about at time here. Any broad recommendations for coordination between a brand's paid and organic efforts? How closely should those be connected?
I think I'll jump in. Mac, feel free to jump in too here. I think they should be really thought of as working together nicely. And I think really, if you think about sequential messaging, some of that content that you're putting on your organic channels can work really nice as the first touch point for a brand to see. So whether it's a blog or whether it's a video or some piece of really engaging creative, that can ultimately get somebody into the funnel if you're doing it correctly. Using that data from how they engage with that content can then be brought into lower parts of the funnel and serve more product offering or something else like that. So you really want to marry those strategies together as best you can and not think of them in silos. That how they work together is really ultimately how you're going to get the most horsepower out of your social strategy.
All right, thanks, Kip. I would just say if anybody else has questions that you think of as you either watch the recording or think about what you've heard today, please feel free to reach out. You will receive an email from us tomorrow with a link to the recording. It'll also be available on our website. And then just a quick plug for our next webinar, which will focus on local SEO strategies, is coming up on June 29th. It'll be led by some SpinUtech SEO leads, Taylor Fisher, Derek Larrabee, and Ben Johnson. And because you attended today's webinar, we'll automatically send you the announcement or email when the registration opens up for that in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, if you, like I said, if you come up with any questions or if we didn't get to yours in the Q&A, please feel free to email us. It's webinar@spinutech.com. And we appreciate your time today. Thank you for joining.